Thank you, everyone, for being here today at Citizen Climate Lobby Canada's Standing Our Ground. Today is January 22nd, 2022. To start, I'd like to acknowledge that Citizens Climate Lobby acknowledges Indigenous people throughout Canada as traditional owners and custodians of the land. This includes Inuit, Métis, and more than 900,000 people living in more than 630 First Nations communities in cities and towns across these lands. Traditional knowledge must be significantly incorporated into meaningful action on climate crisis. To get to know each other, I'd like, if you can, to acknowledge within the chat box. So just run your cursor along the bottom and acknowledge the land from which you are calling in from today. So for example, I'm calling in from Anishinaabe territory, and then the traditional territory of the Tikamatching and Wanapitei First Nations. So if you can put that in the chat, it's a really nice way to get to know each other across Canada. Okay, you can continue to do that, and I will go over our agenda today. I think it may only last an hour, not an hour and a half. So we're doing land acknowledgements right now. I'm just welcoming you and introductions. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kathy Orlando, and I work as the Director of Programs at Citizens Climate International, and I've been directing Canada for over 10 years now for Citizens Climate Lobby. We're going to be celebrating 11 and a half years and then affirming our focus at Citizens Climate Lobby. And then I'd love to send you into breakout so you could share some stories, and then we'll look at the year ahead, and then we'll talk about the Citizens Climate Lobby Canada National Action Teams. So I hope by the end of today, you will understand our niche within Canada's climate movement, learn some of our history at CCL Canada, and prepare to change the course of history in 2022. This is going to be a monumental year. And if we stay focused, we have the chance to really make a difference. So thank you for being here today. So our niche in the environmental movement is quite unique. We train and support volunteers organized by ridings to lobby their parliamentarians and build political will for improvements to the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. And we've been meeting monthly and providing our volunteers with actions since September 2010. This is currently what we're doing. In our last iteration of lobbying, we actually also were between 2019 and 2021 quite involved, along with many organizations across Canada, with the climate accountability laws as well, because we felt Canada having a climate accountability laws would go a long way towards protecting the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act, for which we fought so hard to lobby for. So since 2010, we have been lobbying for what is known in Europe as climate income, and we're beginning to call that here climate income as well, but we also call it carbon fee and dividend, which is an incrementally rising price on carbon pollution, all the money going back to the people equally, regardless of carbon footprint or income. And then ultimately, it should include border carbon adjustments. And this is somewhat what we have in Canada as our backstop policy, except for we don't have border carbon adjustments yet. For those of us who live in provinces, yeah, we're going to be getting 4 rebate checks in 2022. Maybe 2. I think it starts in June. Anyways, but we're supposed to be getting 4 a year starting this year. So this is what we had been lobbying for since 2010. And this is what we have in Canada, minus the border carbon adjustments. And it still needs refinement. So just would like to do a quick review of the work that we've done at Citizens Climate Lobby Canada. In 2010, I met Marshall Saunders, and just through the magic of Facebook, managed to get Citizens Climate Lobby Canada off the ground really quickly. Cheryl McNamara saw one of my posts on Facebook and said, yeah, I want to join you too. And she's still with us today. And I think she's on the call right now. And we, ultimately grew to 28 chapters and 70 constituencies. We conducted 3 national conferences. This is our first one ever in November of 2013. We lobbied politicians about 250 times because that's what we do. And we documented 865 times our words appeared in newspapers between 2010 and 2015. One of our greatest achievements was we empowered an MP to debate carbon fee and dividend in the House of Commons repeatedly. And I'll be talking about that in a moment. And we produced professional public service announcements that aired on TV in the lead up to the election in 2015, including during the World Series games. You may not know this, but MP Bruce Hyer, he was the MP for Thunder Bay, Superior North. Starting in 2010, I started meeting him repeatedly because he showed interest in carbon fee and dividend, even though he was an NDP member at the time. By 2012, Bruce indicated that he wanted to start championing carbon fee and dividend. And he ultimately, and I'm saying this in a nonpartisan way, he left the NDP and joined the Green Party. And between 2013 and 2015, he repeatedly talked about carbon fee and dividend in the House of Commons. And this was us at our first national conference. Many of us were in the House of Commons when Bruce made this statement on the floor of the House of Commons while we were lobbying. And I'm going to play it. And if you can't hear the sound, please tell me. I think I've set it up right, but this is what Bruce Hyer said in the floor of the House of Commons the very first time we lobbied on Parliament Hill in November 2013.
Mr. Speaker, the Citizens Climate Lobby is on the Hill this week calling on MPs to put a price on carbon pollution, specifically a carbon fee and dividend system. Fee and dividend is far more effective than cap and trade. It's a revenue-neutral fee that punishes pollution, puts money into taxpayers' pockets, and creates jobs. Mr. Speaker, will the Conservatives protect the environment and taxpayers and support carbon fee and dividend?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Our government is taking action to address climate change. We've introduced new emissions regulations for vehicles, and we were the first major coal user to ban construction of traditional coal-fired plants. Mr. Speaker, our actions speak for themselves. They're working. Carbon emissions will go down close to 130 megatons from what they would have been under the Liberals. And again, Mr. Speaker, we're doing all this without a carbon tax, a tax that would raise the price of everything for Canadian families. We're not going there, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
There you go. There you have it. And Bruce went on to debate repeatedly in the House of Commons about a need for Canada to have a carbon fee and dividend system. And we're really grateful to him. Another thing we managed to do with the help of Barbara Bergen at CCL Nelson West Kootenay. She was a former television producer of sorts, and she was really concerned about the climate crisis, and she helped us raise money to hire professionals to create public service announcements that aired for free on TV, because that's part of what television stations can do. They can look at nonprofits and they can air their public service announcements. And we had a series of public service announcements that were created, and I know they aired during the World Series in 2015 in the lead up to election 2015. And here's one of them.
We insure our health, our homes, and our cars. So why not our environment? 14 of the 15 warmest years in recorded history have occurred since the year 2000. Carbon emissions are the problem. Our national safety, economic well-being, food security, and the very survival of future generations are at stake. The good news is that it is solvable. Find out how at citizensclimatelobby.ca. Let's make the environment part of the debate.
Yeah, so that's what we did between 20 couple of the things we did between 2010 and 2015.
We ensure
And then when we got a new government, we lobbied quite a bit. We got very busy. We grew to 36 chapters covering 85 ridings, and we conducted 5 national conferences and lobbying days, as well as 2 provincial conference and lobbying days in Ontario as well in that 2-year period. We were super busy. We lobbied 489 times in those 2 years, and we were just relentless with the letters to the editor and the op-eds and the editorial endorsements. A couple of really cool things that happened during that time is we had a lovely reception on Parliament Hill, hosted by my then MP at that time, Paul Lefebvre. It was a beautiful event, a memory for all of us, just a wonderful time. But we also got to sit down for over an hour and a half with the Conservative Environment Committee and had a really nice discussion at our June 2016 conference. Here's Vanessa. It was just wonderful listening to like she was only like 18 at the time, going toe to toe with some pretty intense some conservative MPs talking about the climate crisis. It was a wonderful meeting, and this is just a testimony to the beautiful work that our volunteers do. And then in 2018, we conducted 2 national conferences, and we grew to 38 chapters covering about 100 ridings. And we appeared 728 times in the newspapers. We were just relentless. And we got what we lobbied for. And there we are on Parliament Hill. We got Canada to enact a backstop policy on carbon pricing, where all the money would be returned back to citizens. And that's what we've been hoping for. We were told by a senator and at least 3 MPs, as well as an environment minister from another province, that it was because of our work that Canada chose the backstop policy that it did. So congratulations to all of you for making that happen. We've not given up. We're continue to defend and help make better Canada's Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. So we, for 2 years, lobbied for climate accountability laws, and we're still continuing to lobby for improvements to the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. And in December 2020, the Canadian government announced even more things. So we've ultimately got the rebate checks as opposed to having income tax, line in our form. They're studying border carbon adjustments. There's still more work to be done, but we're continuing to prove the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. We went through 2 federal elections. We watched the nail biter when the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act went through the Supreme Court of Canada. And then the pandemic struck in March of 2020, and we just pivoted and started doing conferences online. So we've had 5 conference and lobbying days federally between 2019 and 2021. And we also had an Ontario Breakfast and Lobbying Day in 2019, which was lovely at Queen's Park. And then we also had this really unique virtual Pan-Canadian Provincial Lobbying Day in 2021. And we lobbied over 120 times per year between 2019 and 2020. Now, and we grew to 41 active chapters. Now, as you can see, our data in 2021 is down a little bit. And that's because I don't know how else to say it, but 2021 was a really hard year. It stunk. There were so many climate disasters, and many of us were being pushed to the edge through the pandemic, with having to take double, triple duty. And we started to really remind everybody to do a lot of self-care. So this slight decrease in lobbying, I don't see as a bad thing. I see it as a good thing, because this meant that you were all taking care of yourself. But this coming year is really critical, and I hope that you will feel empowered at the end of today to really get involved in lobbying, because it's a big year coming down the ropes. So, yeah. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment, and if you wish, I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. Yeah, Mary Blake just brought up something, that picture with the Conservative Committee. It was Mary Blake who made that happen. She got us that meeting, and it was incredible. So yeah, that was her. That was all Mary Blake. This is the power of our volunteers. Would anyone like to share a story that they just want the whole group to hear before we continue? And anybody have a?
Well, I'll share something brief, something that I'm happy with, because the first few months as chapter leader, it was really hard to get our 200 members to show up. I only had 2 or 3 people come for the first 6 months. The last 2 or 3 months, we're getting more like 5 or 6. So patience is a good virtue to have in these chapters. And the other thing that I kind of learned is that most people that join, they don't have the knowledge and or the confidence to start lobbying politicians or writing letters to the editor. You need to build up the confidence and the knowledge, which could take, I'm sure Kathy will agree, it could take many months or even years to, as long as people attend the meetings and they read articles, they go to the CCL meetings, they read the Globe and Mail climate related articles, maybe sign up for a few emails. There's so many organizations out there, great, not just CCL. Then you build up that confidence and knowledge, and then you start writing letters. So we had 2 of our members send in letters to the editor just the last few months, which I'm very happy about. And I helped some of them by editing their drafts. So that's something that has started to work for me.
Yeah, and tremendous growth in Edmonton in the last year. And there's also been tremendous growth all across Canada. Like our Montreal group has like finally really blossomed, and our Winnipeg group, and, you know, Edmonton and Calgary. And we've got, you know, new chapters in like in Manitoba too, like, you know, in Dauphin, as well as in, I'm going to forget the name, but yeah, anyways, it's Brandon. Thank you. Yeah. So it's just been wonderful, wonderful growth. And anybody else have a story they'd like to share before we continue?
It's Cheryl.
Go for it.
One of my favorite, Katerina. One of my favorite stories I heard was when carbon pricing was finally passed in Canada, and Bardish Chatter, who was the House leader, the government House leader, basically, who was her MP, said at a community event with Katerina that it was because of CCL and because of Katerina. Katerina killed her with kindness. And I thought, yeah, that sounds about right.
Perfect story. Anyone else? Because it's our stories that are at the heart of who we are. And it's so beautiful to hear them.
Hi, maybe I'll share. I just got my first letter to the editor published, and I want to thank Katerina. She kind of every meeting she plugs it, like just, and a lot of mentorship. And I found that the CCL way is like translating into all other domains, like basic income and lobbying for other sort of rights and policies and motions. And it's really kind of taken over my life. So thank you.
That's a wonderful story. Thank you. We can share for a couple more minutes. These are great. Anyone else?
I have one. Over the summer during election season, I stopped in to meet with the MP that was running for re-election in our part of the Conservative group, and I lobbied with him virtually, but never actually met him in person. So I was kind of like, you know, it's a good opportunity to actually meet the guy. And so I went and talked with him for a little bit. And there's this guy who had been helping him all day, like from, I don't know, 7 a.m. until the time that I was there, which is like they were literally closing and tearing everything down. But this guy had just donated so much of his time and effort to like making this campaign function work. This guy, not knowing who I was, started talking about how the Liberals' climate tax was complete hogwash and totally ridiculous. And if I want to go out and buy a big truck, I should be able to like fast actually kind of like pushed back on that a little bit and told him like, well, no, you know, we need to price carbon to send a market signal and push consumer behavior, because we really have to get climate change under control. And we need a market-based solution, one that's not like an authoritarian command style policy. And it's like, geez, this is insane. Like a leader in the Conservative Party is talking about climate change and specifically pricing carbon and pushing back on a person who is like given so much to his day. Like, I don't know. It was just super encouraging to me to see that even though headlines and mainstream political thought would have you believe that like conservatives are 100% against climate change, like they know what's going on and they are on board to being part of the fight. And yeah, we're literally all in this together. I think it's specifically because he has relationships with CCL and knows that we respect him and don't, you know, show up at his office with signs and glitter bombs and all kinds of crazy, you know, antagonistic strategies. We like him and he likes us, and that helps us make progress.
Great story, Raider. Maybe one last story and then we'll continue. Anyone?
This maybe isn't so much a story as a comment, but well, I really enjoyed the slideshow of kind of the history of CCL, sort of broken into eras and what we were doing when. I first joined in 2015, but so you're reflecting today. I was, you know, sort of reminded of what it was like first getting started, and I was in my mid-20s in grad school at the time, and I think the average age of participation in CCL was a little older then. So I had no idea what I was doing, but I had read about this organization on the internet and then done the intro call, and then Kathy had talked me into starting a chapter. But just reflecting on earlier days, I was reminded of how, like, the extent to which I had no idea what I was doing when I first got started with CCL, but how much I was able to accomplish just by sort of reading the action sheet or finding out what we were supposed to do. You know, we're supposed to request a meeting with our MPP. Oh, okay. Oh, we're supposed to write to this. Oh, okay. Just sort of doing whatever activity we were doing, or just kind of following the directions. And I guess I was kind of surprised by like the frequency with which people either say yes or like that they'll sit down with you, or like I was just reflecting on how getting started with CCL was a big learning experience for me in how you can usually do a lot more. We have more power than we think we do, and in some ways I think being so new to all of this at the beginning, kind of all I really knew how to do was just follow the directions, so I almost didn't have the brain space to second guess myself. So yeah, I think reflecting on CCL history today was kind of a reminder for me of how I think we're just all a little more powerful than we think we are. So thank you for that, Kathy.
Oh, thank you for that. You're absolutely right. We're way more powerful than we think we are, each and every one of us. You know, our MPs love us, and it's because of all the great work by everybody. Well, thank you for those shares, and I am going to continue. It was a really important meeting that happened at COP26. This was the meeting where Justin Trudeau said that the world needs a global carbon price, a floor. You know, this is when he said that there should be a world carbon price. And this is really starting to shift the discussions around carbon pricing. Carbon pricing just used to be cap and trade and emissions trading schemes. To get, you know, to get any other sort of discussion, almost impossible. But now other discussions are happening around climate income or carbon fee and dividend. Border carbon adjustments were talked about here, using trade as enforcement to get countries to price carbon pollution. You know, the floor price was talked about. And for those of you who have deep concerns about, what's happening to our friends in the global south and, how they're suffering from the climate crisis, well, there are special things starting to happen at the IMF. There's going to be special drawing rights to vastly expand climate finance. So that means that countries that have, climate considerations in their applications to the IMF are going to, have a higher likelihood of getting monies from the IMF. So, and all sorts of non-market approaches. So the way of shifting money to make things starting to happen is really starting to happen. Carbon pricing is coming in now. Something that we started talking about in 2010 is becoming mainstream in this decade. And Canada is seen as a leader. 2 stories that you should know about. This week, we had our last call with Mark Reynolds as our executive director. And he went around to all the managers of the various divisions. And when he got to me, he said, Kathy, you got what we want in the United States, your group. You all made that happen. So know that, our work has, deeply impacted our colleagues in the USA, and they deeply admire us for it. As well, they've got a new executive director at CCL Australia. It's been since 2013 when their carbon pricing policy was dismantled, and they have a government that point blank at COP26 said to me to my face in a big room that they would never price carbon pollution. I know, I hear you nodding your head. They're still going to focus on carbon pricing. They want carbon fee and dividend or climate income, just like we have in Canada. Our work here in Canada has, profoundly impacted our colleagues. Our colleagues in Nigeria, they have started getting really high level meetings. And just a month ago, the government has proposed to remove a subsidy that is important for keeping fuel prices low for everyday people. But they're going to remove that subsidy. Instead of giving them lower fuel prices, they're going to give money directly back to poorer households. That's one of the proposals. So governments, they're starting to take financial stuff from, the fossil fuel industry and redirecting it to people. And, we can say that we had a role in that because we are influencing how governments look at, giving money back to people and what to do with fossil fuel finances. So we've had a profound effect. Our colleagues all over the world just tell me how much your work has meant to them. And even Justin Trudeau, when he met, Joe Robertson met with him afterwards, like in this meeting, because Joe Robertson was in the room, he knew who we were. He knew who Citizens Climate Lobby was. So kudos to all of you. 2020, why I am super excited for 2022 is because Germany is the presidency of the G7, and they are going to create a G7 that's going to be climate ambition all the way. And they are opening up their G7 to create an international climate club. It's going to be a very climate ambitious G7. So this is a very exciting year. That's why, that's why I think this is, such an important year, 2022. So let's look at this year ahead so we can start thinking about it. If you didn't already know, there's going to be 3 IPCC reports this year. The first one will come out in February. It's for impacts on adaptation and vulnerability. And know that, climate income does play a role in this because, uplifting everybody and making sure no one gets no harm, giving money back to the people, that's got to be one of the adaptation measures that we have. And climate income is a way to start, cycling money back to people so that they can, adjust to the world that's going to change dramatically in this decade, just from even climatic impacts. Then there's going to be the Group 3 report on mitigation of climate change. So we can expect a lot of stuff about carbon pricing in there. Yep, I'm going to the World Bank and IMF meetings in April. Know that Joe Robertson actually sits on one of the carbon pricing leadership coalition at the World Bank's committees. And then we're going to have a national conference. There's also going to be an International Climate Income Alliance as well. There'll be the C7 and the W7, and CCL is quite involved in both of those. And then there's these subsidiary body meetings at the UNFCCC that we get quite involved in. And then there'll be the USA National Annual Conference. And then there's going to be a global conference and lobbying days where we're going to actually hold a conference and then get all our volunteers around the world to go lobby. Because it's June in Canada, I'm not going to require you to do that. That's why we're having ours in May, because I tell our colleagues that we take a lot of time off in the summer in Canada. So we will do our lobbying in May. There will also be the UN General Assembly in September. And I'm hoping, again, we can have a Pan-Canadian online conference and lobbying event with our provincial parliamentarians to keep pushing them for harmonization of carbon pricing policies across the Confederation, because it's really important that we do that. And then here is the big report. The big AR6 assessment report by the IPCC will be in October. Then there will be the World Bank IMF meetings. And then I'm hoping that we will get involved in a citizens climate international global conference and lobbying days, where we'll sit on a conference with our colleagues around the world and go lobby right before COP27. And then there's COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh. So that is the year ahead. For fun, I thought I would ask you all to, I hope this works. If you can, go to Menti and start putting in Menti what your top 3 climate policies are other than carbon pricing.
Yes, it looks great.
Okay, we'll give that a minute. Just keep entering. And it's looking really good. Yep, east-west electrical grid. Yep, we need building code changes. Yes, we need densification and rewilding. There are so many things we need to do. And I love that you all have passions for things other than carbon pricing. That's wonderful. Yes, for basic income. Love that. I actually got this thing to work. Yay. Okay, so that's great. Go back to my slides. Thank you everyone for that. View slideshow. Okay, so everybody has lots of passions other than carbon pricing, but we did this year devise what's called a CCL Canada membership expectations for 2022. And we're recognizing that this year is a pivotal year for climate action globally, and carbon pricing is a keystone policy for the transformation of global energy and financial systems underway. So to respect each other's personal time and focus is key. So we're going to keep focusing on carbon pricing, and we're going to keep this evidence-based, respectful, and nonpartisan, and also keep our actions focused locally. So some of the big things that we hope that, well, we really need you to do is attend our conference and lobbying days and get your members to come as well. This is, we really want to empower our government to really push hard for border carbon adjustments, for removing natural gas produced electricity from the OPBS, to start, really increasing the carbon pricing stringency on the various industries, and hopefully eventually enact border carbon adjustments. So yeah, we really want to empower them to do that in 2022. And we're, to do this effectively, and this will give you all permission, is, just stick to what's in the leave behind. So yeah, that's really important, that the leave behind is our lobbying document. We are going to create another one this spring, and everybody should be focusing in on that. If you're a group leader, it's really hope that you come into our group leader calls and get to know with, what we're doing, and provide relationships, get to know each other. But also, meet with your local group, and definitely read those action sheets and keep your action tracker up to date. and trust that other groups doing their work will create the needed policies, and we can support them and celebrate them by cheering them on. And also, if you've got CCL accounts that you follow the CCL way, and it's really hoped that you join the CCL Canada group in CCL community, and also know that you will be put in a CCL group leaders group probably in February, and we all have to use the mailing list lawfully. So that's what you do locally, but there's a lot of things that are going to happen nationally. There is a it'd be good if the CCL group leaders, if there was more mentoring going on in between there. So I'm going to give you a sign-up sheet if you want to help mentor other group leaders and just support each other with your lobbying efforts and stuff like that. I'm going to give you a sign-up. I'd love some help doing the climate advocate training this spring and start training others to deliver the CCL Canada climate advocate training. That's our main training tool. The CCL USA methodologies that they use and what they use to train their volunteers doesn't really apply to Canada anymore. We're going to create what's called the Leave Behind for 2022. So you're welcome to join that. That's where we, for about 8 weeks, will sit and we will go over and find just determining what we will be lobbying for in 2022. Love some help on a conference and lobbying days. There'll also there's a conservative action team. So they're working on, lobbying conservatives and using best practices there. Also would love it if people could join a senator lobbying team. We're going to target a couple senators this year again. There's a national letter to the editor writing team. There's a Twitter Force action team. Love some help writing the action sheets and laser talks and the newsletters. And there's also Team CIVO and hopefully a youth team, because we do have youth amongst us. And if you all just even for the lobbying in May, had a way to collect together, that would be very empowering. Just a little bit more about Team CIVO. We are lobbying for sevoflurane and desflurane and volatile anesthetics to be included in the greenhouse gas inventory. So, so are there any questions about these action teams? And then I'm going to allow you to go into breakout rooms and just wander around and see if some of these action teams are for you. So anybody want to promote an action team that they love before I start giving you permissions to get into other rooms? Anyone?
Kathy, I have a quick question.
Yep.
Sorry, and how do you sign up for any of these?
I'm going to give you a link to a Google Doc shortly.
Awesome, thank you.
Anyone else?
I've done the climate advocacy training, and yeah, I agree. It is a bit US centric. So I'm glad to see that it's going to be adapted to be more relevant to Canadians.
Yeah, it has. I actually started adapting it quite a bit when we got the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. And yeah, so it is adapted. So if anybody wants to, I think we're going to do at least one monthly training in February, March, and April. And it'd be lovely if people who want to learn how to give this training or even show up on calls and help, that would be great.
I just want to do a plug for the Conservative Committee. It's anybody can join, but it will be very helpful for those of you who have MPs who are Conservative. And it's a kind of a tactical, planning to meet with an MP, getting advice from people, et cetera, et cetera. So for those of you with Conservative MPs, you may want to consider that one.
All right, I'm going to put this in the, tell me if I've managed to, I think you should be able to. Can you access that document? Did I do it right this time? I never do it right. Are you able to get into that document?
Yes, I just did.
Yay. All right. Okay, so there they are. And now I'm going to take a moment to set up some breakout rooms, and you're going to have to try to manually get in them. We create, all right. No, oh, no, options. No, I want to, all right. I'll just be a moment. I have to create breakout rooms. Options. Oh, no.
While Kathy's doing that, just follow up on what Cheryl said about the conservative group, and just also say that you don't have to be somebody who identifies as a conservative to join that group. Like she said, it's kind of a group for people who have conservative MPs to, yeah, kind of come together and strategize, and yeah, everybody's welcome to join it. And that.
Okay.
Climate impact.
Well, it looks like the other teams are really discussing things. That's great.
In terms of the senator lobbying, Kathy, what did you, like you said you had specific names, so is it more relevant? Like some of them are like provincially associated. Have you got targets, and is Ontario in that bucket?
Well, it's important to develop relationships with key senators. So for the longest time, Senator Grant Mitchell was our point person in the Senate, but he retired last year. And then my senator was replacing him, but then she freaking died of COVID. It was like she died like in November. It was like devastating. So yeah, so just having a few relationships with, we'll target. We do speak with Rosa Galvez. I think we can speak with our other senator, but we would take a close look and try and target a couple senators who we think might be somebody who will keep guiding us, that with that sage wisdom. And Senator Grant Mitchell, I don't think Senator Grant Mitchell really guided me. He was I would speak to him at least 4 times a year. And it was really kind of funny how we got to know each other. Charlie Angus MP Charlie Angus started a Facebook group called, Stop, it forced Pamela Wallin to retire because she had she was quite involved in the oil industry. And then she was involved in, kiboshing the Climate Accountability Act of 2010. And so there was this, so I joined this Facebook group, and we ended up like sending all sorts of letters to senators to try to get rid of Senator Pamela Wallin, which was kind of not the CCL way of doing things. It wasn't a CCL thing. And then I get a call like from Senator Grant Mitchell wanting to speak with me. And I couldn't get him off the phone. It was an hour and a half. It was so awesome. And then from then on, he just guided us in getting, how to navigate Parliament and things like that. So it would be nice to have another senator to do that with. And it also looks good when we lobby to say that we've lobbied a couple senators as well. And ultimately the Senate has to, pass the bills through anyway. So we need a few on the inside to make sure things will go through. Sometimes they'll warn us when there's going to be trouble. And, maybe we should do some pushing on social media or something, or we can warn other groups as well. So, yeah. Senator Mitchell was invaluable to the work I did. Like, he gave me so much information.
So Kathy, what do you see as your next steps in terms of replacing him or establishing something like what Greg's asking for that I think is good, which is like some kind of a sense of who are the soft targets, who.
It'd be nice to get a meeting with Rosa Galvez. She's like a senator of high interest. It's hard to get her though. I've not been able to yet. And I just don't have the time to chase her down and hopefully find a couple more senators just to guide us. tell us that we're on the right track, or maybe point us in a little slightly different direction if need be. Wow, they're really talking in those rooms. This is going to go the full hour and a half. I'm going to stop the recording.